Hi everyone, welcome to the podcast. I'm Gary, this is James. James, how are you?
Good, thank you. You?
Yeah, good. So this is Season 3, Episode 2. What are we talking about this week? There's lots of stuff going on.
Travel related posts.
Yeah, bit of travel. I think something around fitness would be a good one because we've both been, like a lot of people, challenged with that with the old COVID and everything. So that'll be an interesting one. Lots of new stuff going on with EuroBike, lots of interesting news coming out. Things like Bosch motors and new kit.
Yeah, all the new 2022 stuff, which looks really interesting.
Yeah, so got a few things to talk about. And also, we are now in our new set.
Yes.
So for the people who are on YouTube, we actually get to see our faces. If you're on the Apple Podcasts or any other podcast services, you're lucky enough that you don't need to see our faces.
That is a bonus, especially in my case. Questions for listeners. What's been your biggest bike ride? Would you consider an additional battery to make the adventure last longer?
Yeah.
Sounds dodgy.
Does.
Another question. Do I have to think of some in a minute? And new stuff. I'll put that rotor down. New stuff. A new braking system. As you mentioned, the Bosch 2022 stuff. EuroBike.
Yeah.
And particular vendor that's missing from it.
Yeah, that's upset you slightly.
It has upset me. So where do we want to start?
So I think we've talked about it a lot because we've been trying to do it for a while, but the travel one's an interesting one, especially in the last week with stuff like on YouTube. Even EMBN have done a couple of vids, one about a slightly more low key or certainly lower level of adventure ride, and then they've done what they've classed as a bit of an epic ride, which were both really interesting in different ways. Obviously, epic rides always seem to involve multiple batteries, which none of us can actually afford, so I don't know why that keeps coming up in their videos.
I can't put an additional battery on mine anyway, so it's charge time in between.
Yeah. But there's some really interesting stuff around going and using an e-bike on an adventure ride, which it really appeals to me. I think on both of them they're in really nice places. I think one was Wales, one was I think they were in Scotland, weren't they? Yeah. So stunning parts of the UK for those that have the luxury of being near there. And I would definitely like to do something like that. What about yourself?
No, I agree. We need to plan for October or whenever we're looking at going. I do think my recent experience, just that ability to open up some of the kind of fire road stuff just makes such a difference. Yeah. And the ability to choose a bit of technical if you wanted to do something technical. Yeah. But know that it doesn't go on for a whole, a whole kind of run or a whole loop. You can duck in and duck out when you want or when you feel uncomfortable. I think would be really interesting for someone that doesn't have a huge amount of experience, such as myself.
Yeah, and I think the old range anxiety thing comes into play on choosing what type of travel you want to do as well, doesn't it? We do sometimes even here when we're out for a big ride, get a bit of range anxiety late afternoon when we're getting close to the end.
Yeah. Well, I know that yours does more because you're lighter, but mine will only do about 32, 33 miles on a charge at the kind of use that I do. Maybe a bit more now that I use turbo a bit less. But if you're going to go out for a morning, that's probably a morning's ride. Yeah. And then even with the fast charger, you need a good few hours to be able to charge it back up before you can go out again.
Yeah. So range has definitely got to be a consideration, and if it's something that you want to be able to run the whole bike's range on it and then charge again overnight for your next day, I think that's important. So that's got to be a factor in, definitely.
Sorry to interrupt. I did notice on the bike that I hired that we talked about in episode 1, because that's got a 650 watt hour battery and mine's a 500. I only dropped in the 2.5 hours I was riding. I only dropped 1 bar.
That's a massive difference. Yeah, that shows you. It doesn't sound like a big difference, but it clearly is.
And we can talk about that again when we talk about the new Bosch stuff.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing as well, I suppose, and this is one for listeners, because I think certainly we don't suffer from the challenges around travelling with bikes that much over here, obviously, but security and travel. So if we went, as an example, if we wanted to go to the UK, we'll have to take my van or your car with bike racks on it.
Yeah.
Is that a common way of getting bikes to places securely. What are your recommendations? What experience have you had? Would be really interesting to know. And then if you are using bike racks, is it okay? Do you take your batteries out? How do you deal with it? Because obviously eMTBs are a little bit heavier than your average bike, and I think there's a pretty noticeable weight limit on a lot of these bike racks, isn't there?
Oh yeah, I can't even remember the make. I'm trying to look at mine now. Don't remember what model it is, but it will only take 2 e-bikes.
Yeah.
So I think that'll make a difference. But I can take my battery out with a key, but you can't.
No.
Specialised, you can't do that.
Yeah, I've got to basically get the tools out to take
Apply
them
a
out.
couple of snips and you're done. Getting it back in is more difficult.
Yeah, there was a great thing about batteries on. Somebody did. I think it was on Instagram, and it was just a meme with somebody opening a battery door on a bike and a load of Duracells fell out, which was hilarious.
Yeah, that was quite funny.
That was quite apt.
But it would be interesting to know how people do travel. I mean, recently we drove to Northern Ireland, and I was paranoid about, if I had taken my bike, I would have been paranoid about the whole thing just being ripped off the back and the bike nicked. So I didn't in the end, which is why I hired. But it would be interesting to hear what people's views are on that.
And as well, I suppose your destination, wherever you're staying, what about bike security there as well? I think I've seen plenty of pictures of what people are classing as cool bike based accommodation, or certainly riding based accommodation, and they'll have a picture of a couple of bikes outside, but there's no secure storage. So
I've had an idea.
What's that?
Right. So do you remember Knight Rider?
Yes.
When he needed to stop or do something, he drove into the back of that articulated lorry. So we could have a branded articulated lorry, and whenever you want to stop for the night, you drive it into the back of the lorry, and then the whole thing is safe.
And charging happens, and there's a bike mechanic in there.
Yeah.
Fully sponsored by.
And
Park
if it was
Tools.
long enough, you could sleep in the front bit, and then just have like your van and stuff in the back.
Yeah. It's slightly getting my eco credentials up on.
Yeah, those diesels are so efficient now, though. Maybe that's not a great idea.
Yeah. So, and then we're traveling. What's a good ride? Where if you want to just do fire roads and just single track stuff that's not too difficult to actually run on. What's a good day? How long would you be out for? Those are the sort of things that need planning and we need to think about. It'd be good to see what everybody else has been doing as well. I think it'll be interesting to get some experience from other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Email podcast@the eMTBshow.com if you've got any views. I think, we'll be arriving at Poole. So anywhere from Poole all the way up to, in the UK obviously, all the way up to...
So not Alaska?
No, that's a longer drive. I've gone to Northern Ireland, that was more than enough. But views to say, if you go a bit further north, if you go to North Wales, or you do this or you do that, you get a much better ride. Then I think some feedback on that would be really interesting from any of the listeners from that area. Questions for listeners. What has been your biggest ride?
Yeah.
Longest
ride. So I think that you can form two variations on that. So biggest ride is in the most epic thing you've ever done on the bike. We've had some feedback off a few people, and a few people on the Strava Club have been producing some really interesting results, some fascinating rides that you're seeing that people are doing. What's your biggest ride? What have you done that you've just come back from thinking, that was just the most amazing thing ever? But also then what has been the biggest ride from how long you've been on that bike? How much of your battery have you used? Have you got home with no battery left, but it's just been an amazing run? Or have you got home literally dying of thinking you're riding a lump of iron? I think just thinking about my own answer to those questions, I think however much of a fun ride you've had, if you run out of power on an eMTB, it's a bit painful.
The fun just disappears completely on the way home. And however fit you think you are, you realise how unfit you are when you've got 30 kilos that you're trying to push that feels like iron. And what's gone wrong? What's the worst thing that's gone wrong on a bike? What's the furthest from home, and how did you get back? Be interesting to get some funny stories. How soon did an accident occur? I was fairly lucky that I ripped all the rear mech off
literally down the road.
half a
I
mile.
was less lucky when my crank arm fell off.
But that was funny
It was
because
for
it was
you.
like you were riding side saddle. You were like pushing down on one side and
That
waiting
was
to come out.
that was it wasn't it was a major fail, but it was also ridiculous that
Yeah.
happened. And the fact that I was pedalling down the road and then I saw the crank arm fly past me.
It was quite funny that we stopped because there was a noise, and you're
Yeah.
like, that doesn't sound healthy. And then literally 2 minutes later, the arm fell off.
Yeah. But I've not done anything. Well, we've had crashes, and I've come back
Yeah.
with bent handlebars and a few other things. But
Yeah.
I don't think we've had any major fails. I think your rear mech was probably the worst one. I think.
Yeah.
Because that was full replacement process.
Oh, that was a few £100 to get that replaced.
Yeah.
But I think that was because I had a loose bolt that the chain caught and ripped it
Yeah.
out. So that was my fault for not checking the bolts tight regularly enough.
But we've not had motor fails. We've not had battery fails. I've had my command
Had to
module.
reboot a couple of
I've had to reboot a few times, but I think that's quite common on Specialized. They'll go into like a red flash of death, and it just won't work. So you've got to just turn the bike off and turn it back on again. Can you believe you actually have to say that about a push bike?
Turn it off and turn it on again.
Yeah.
Um,
But no, I think we've been quite lucky, really. Although we're not really pushing the extremities of the boundaries of these bikes.
no, but when you look at people on the Strava Club that are riding in snow all the time,
Yeah.
that must be an interesting thing to learn and just get used to.
Yeah.
You know, when it's remotely icy here or it's spitting, then you're like, right, that's going to be slippy. I'm not doing that. Or you take extra caution. But when it's 2 foot of snow,
Yeah, major kudos to the guys that are doing that sort of stuff. I think it's hard enough doing that on sand over here.
yeah, that's pretty unpleasant as well. What's the worst? I don't even know how to word this. What's the worst interaction you've had with other people, whether it be road bikers or whether it just be pedestrians? Have you been riding where you shouldn't and someone said something, and how have you dealt with that? I think there's probably some quite funny things there that we could hear from people from.
Yeah. So we do get the odd challenge on cliff paths over here. So Jersey's obviously got lots of cliff paths around it that are big with walkers, but there's also some of them that are they're effectively a shared area. There's no official, you can't ride on them. It's just a shared area. But a lot of walkers think, no, you shouldn't be riding on them at all. It is some of them are quite extreme, and you'd be mad to ride on them anyway. The one thing I've always done is just, if somebody's coming at me and walking and giving me grief, I just overemphasize smiles and hellos and thank yous and goodbyes, until recently when I decided to just respond in French, which threw him, and I carried on riding.
Yeah, I wasn't that smart though. I just said sorry, and then he went, "Oh, it's fine. It doesn't matter." And I'm like, "Well, then why say anything in the first place?"
Yeah.
But never mind. But yeah,
Plenty of near misses with cars. I think that's still quite disappointing that still happens. But the roads over here are pretty narrow anyway, so there's some very impatient drivers, and they do definitely do cut you up, which comes back to the whole point of an e-bike should be able to keep up with traffic. I think the regulations in the UK on the max speed is wrong, especially when you can go twice as fast as that on a push bike like a racer. We should be able to keep up with traffic, and then less of those cut up events happen.
So what you mentioned last time, I think, or maybe when we were out riding, that they're talking about changing the speed.
Yeah, there's a petition. I don't know if it's a UK only one, but there's definitely one floating around on a lot of social media for the UK, and it's basically a petition to get in front of government to change the regulations so that we basically effectively will match the US on the speed limiters on e-bikes. And it is purely because people are saying they can't keep up with traffic, and it's very hard, and then people are cutting them up and they're having accidents, and it's not they're not going too fast to have an accident, they're getting caught up with cars. So I think it's a valid point.
So looking at the petition that was raised in 2017, which was an old one, which closed because of a general election, they needed 10,000 signatures to get that before the government. And how many do you think they got?
4.
681.
That's how many e-bikes were out in the day.
I think it was. It would be really interesting actually to do that again and see what it was. So they wanted to move it from 15.6 miles an hour, which it is at the moment,
Yeah.
to 20 miles an
20
hour
miles an hour.
to keep up with the flow and enable cyclists to get out of trouble easier when the motor comes off and the bike becomes sluggish and harder to cycle. US is 20 miles an hour. So that would be interesting to see if they're going to do that again.
Yeah. The other thing the US have got as well is they've got the bikes that aren't pedal assist, so completely different. They've basically got a throttle. We don't need that over here. We just need a little bit more speed for those roads. I think.
Right, I've now updated that so we can cut the last bit out. Basically, there's another petition which is still valid and still going. So of the 10,000, it's got 1,060.
Wow, I think we need to do a bit more work on that.
So we will put a link to the petition. I'm going to fill it in now, but that's to change it to 20 miles an hour. At 10,000 signatures,
It goes before government.
it goes before government, and at 100,000, it's got to be debated. So I'm going to create a bot tonight that's just going to create.
I can't
random
imagine
names.
there's 100,000 eMTB riders out there that listen to this show. Very nice if there was.
Would there be 10,000? Nearly.
Me.
Are there 10,000 eMTB riders in the UK?
Definitely.
Right. Signing this petition. Oh, I've been stumped at the first question. Am I a British citizen or UK resident? Yeah, kind of.
Kind of. So while you do that, and it's a good segue, fitness is an interesting one with
Well, you can
EMTBs.
talk about that. I'm useless at that.
What, fitness?
Yeah.
So I think, well, we've both had, like a lot of people, suffered with in the last 18 months with the you-know-what that we're not going to mention. And getting back up to some level of fitness is a bit of a challenge, and it's quite daunting, actually, if you're of an age that's it's harder to get out there and motivate yourself and recover from stuff, yeah. I feel like I'm doing all right, but I have definitely noticed the difference after some time off the bike, mainly when I'm either not using the assistance at all or in eco mode. It felt a lot harder, but I think you quickly start to pick up again. I don't know what your experience is. You've had it harder, so how are you finding it now?
1,061 signatures.
Great.
How have I found it now? I can't think of how long it's been since I kind of was released from COVID. 4 weeks? Has it been a month? Something like that? It was literally, I couldn't do very much at all. I mean, if I could do 2 miles, that was hard work. I think now I've probably got almost back to where I was before, but that's taken a month. It's amazing how quickly fitness just disappears.
And originally when you first got on the bikes, and we were saying, right, let's go here for a ride. It was a bit of a daunting thing, wasn't it? But late last year, it was no longer an issue. We didn't even think about it. So it's taken a bit of a step back, hasn't it, with the results of COVID?
Oh, definitely. I think we would have done. We were regularly. Well, I say regularly. I was regularly home with only one bar left, with only a small percentage on the bike, and I wouldn't have even thought about that.
Yeah.
And now I would think about it, and I think it would be a bit more effort, but I don't think it would take much to get back. But, I think what we have done recently is like gone for really early morning rides. But it's that moment when you're kind of lying in bed and you're like, I really can't be bothered to do this, but you always feel pleased you did.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that it absolutely categorically proves is that you can get fit on an e-bike. You can definitely improve your health. It's all the stuff about technique and the riding skills and the off-roading, that's all really cool, but ultimately you can definitely get fit on an e-bike, because we've both experienced the positives of riding for 18 months solid, and then what the difference is after a break.
When I first got my bike, so what was that, two and a bit years ago? 2
years ago now.
The first place I went was to a relative's, so it was to my aunt's house, and she probably lives a mile and a half, and I was super proud of myself for riding there and back.
Did she use the defib on you when you got there?
I don't remember getting there. And when I came to, she said, "Haven't you done well?" No,
here's a cake.
Yeah, here's some Kendall mint cake. Do you need a lift home? So we put the bike in the back of the car. No, we didn't. I cycled home, and then the next time I went out, I then went to my parents' house, which is probably about 3 miles away, and I was even more proud of myself. And I now look back at that and go, what an idiot. But
You
at
shouldn't
that
do.
time, I was absolutely, just couldn't do it. I hadn't ridden
Yeah.
a bike in so long. And now I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Um,
But
and
what an interesting thing that if I turned up at your house with a £5,500 top end Santa Cruz Heckler or whatever, really high end bike, just not an e-bike, and said let's go for a ride, you'd have closed the door on me.
I wouldn't have done
You would
that.
have even done it.
Well, do you remember when we started going out riding and you were on your Kona mountain bike
Yeah.
and I had an eMTB?
Yeah.
I remember getting to the top of. I remember going to the top of the hill. A lot of you won't make anything to, but at some O-bins, we got to the top of the hill, and I turned round to say, "Do you want to go left or right at the top?" And I couldn't even see you. And then eventually, it was like, and yeah, I think it's completely transformational.
Yeah, definitely. So fitness is definitely a thing. It's if anybody says anything negative about it, they're just uninformed. They're not necessarily idiots. They're just ill-informed.
When they go yelling at Cheetah and
Yeah,
things like that, as they're standing there, sitting there having their coffee or something at a park bench and actually not doing anything.
Yeah. So I think I'm finding the fitness thing a real positive. I think it's a steady progression, but it's a positive one, so that's good.
I really enjoy it. Well, we've said this before. I didn't think I'd enjoy it as much as I do enjoy it.
Yeah. It's definitely become part of it's a real part of your life now, isn't it? Which is I don't think in the many years I've known you, you've not been so into something ever.
Not sport related.
Not sport.
As I always used to say, my favourite machine in the gym is the vending machine. But no, and anyone that goes anywhere near it, I'm like, just try it once,
Yeah.
and you'll be absolutely hooked.
Yeah. Is that when you're given a little packet free?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it, at the school gates,
Yeah.
allegedly. But on to exciting things, new things.
Yeah.
EuroBike 2021.
It's happening right now. I think it's 1st till 4th, of September. One of those things I'd love to go to, and you can actually go as public. It's not all industry press stuff, but obviously right at the moment it's not the best place to be heading to. I think there'll be better times to do it. I think we'll try and plan it
Where
one
is
day.
it? Frankfurt.
I think it's just outside Frankfurt.
Right. Okay. So it looks quite cool. With one slight issue is that Cannondale don't seem to be there.
Yeah, you're a bit offended by that, aren't you?
I was offended by it. I am.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Does that mean you're now going to buy a different brand of bike?
No, not that offended. I see it as actually they want to be a bit more secretive.
You're a bit more boutique.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what? Not everyone needs to know one.
Yeah.
It's like the thing where if you need to ask for the price, you can't
Yeah,
afford it.
it's clearly not for you.
Exactly. And I'm now trying to figure out timings of everything. So
You've been doing some research, haven't you?
I have, and I've been learning to read
Type.
as well. Type and read. I found this thing called Google that if you put in something you're looking for, it just comes out with the results.
That must be magic.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I've also been looking at when the press releases were with the new models over the last few years to get an understanding of timescales. So EuroBike 2021 is all the 2022 tech.
Yeah.
Bosch have unveiled the next generation of different bits that we'll talk about from them. And then the manufacturers have all come off the back of that, and they're all saying, well, these are our 2022 bits, and they'll all be in the shops for Christmas, which we all know are lies because you won't be able to get anything near of it until next year.
Yeah, can't even get stuff delivered, never mind have it in the shops.
And I know that the new version of my bike, the one that I've ordered, is out January the 20th, so that kind of makes sense. And I also know that the press releases went out in November, so they never got to EuroBike anyway.
Yeah.
So this may not be something new. But let's talk about the Bosch stuff and how I think it's starting to become a bit more aligned with the kind of specialised bros bits.
Yeah.
So it's a 750 watt hour battery.
Yeah.
I've actually not got it on my screen, so I am going to try and freestyle this. 750 watt hour battery. It's heavier slightly than the 650 or 625.
Right.
But pound for pound, you're getting more watt hours per pound. That sounds positive.
Yeah.
Which is basically them saying, ignoring the fact that it is heavier. I've not read anything about the motor.
No.
I don't think there's any difference to the motor. The
I'm hoping there's at least they've shaved some weight off it. Because that's kind of what everybody's trying to do at the moment with the motors.
I'm hoping, but between the Gen 3 and the Gen 4, they had shed a massive amount of weight.
Yeah.
When I look at the one that's in my bike over there and you compare that to the newer version of it, it's probably half the size.
Yeah.
The Bosch head units have now changed. So there is a smaller one, which is just LED only with no big screen on it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And that's quite cool. There's a Kiox, which was there before.
That's the big Kiox, the same as the one you had on the other bike.
Yeah, it's the medium size one, not the massive one that's
yeah.
basically a Kindle on the front and you can read your James
watch
Patterson
Netflix.
novel. Yeah. But they now do the Kiox, which is the one before, and they now do a Kiox 300.
Yeah.
Which I think
that's replaced what you've got on yours now, which is the LCD screen. So that's a replacement for that.
Yeah. And they've also now got a new e-bike app called Flow,
yeah. All very reminiscent of what Specialized and Bros have done, but
it's very different. It's much better, Gary. I don't know how you can say that. And they've also done is where you had there was a mode on mine. I can't remember what it's called. The bottom
Turbo.
one. Eco. No, that's the one. It's just
that's the only mode you got.
Eco mode. Eco Tour eMTB Turbo.
Yeah.
You can now change the power output in the app, so you can tweak it, which goes with what Specialized have done with the Bros piece with their, what's it called? Go on then. What's their thing? Is Command
Center or something like that.
I
don't. To be honest, the reality is I've got it set up on mine and I never use it because I just don't. The thing I don't. It's clever and I think it's really good, but if I went into the app and moved the power rating one increment, I am not going to notice that at all. It's not going to make any difference to my life, so I just don't bother.
Oh, right, okay, let's have a go. I'll change the settings on your bike.
Yes.
And see if you notice it.
More importantly, what we will get out of the Bosch system when James gets it, if he gets it, is stats on what mode he's in for the longest.
I am using turbo a lot less than I was right
because you're riding for a lot less.
Yes,
but it will give. That's the clever thing. It will give you. I mean, the Specialized does it as well, but I think the Bosch implementation is a bit better, and it looks pretty clever. The stats, the way they come out, so you'll be able to say how long you've been in each mode for, how much power you put down, everything. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I think they're all doing that now, aren't they? There's Shimano have got something similar.
Well, they're all doing. I mean, we've said this before.
Sense.
Apart from a bit of battery tech and things like that, there's not a huge amount that's in development, or so I thought. But you're going to talk about a new entry-level braking system from Magura.
Yeah. Brakes. We've got to stop talking about brakes. But
No, and these were my old brakes. People on the podcast won't be able to hear, but this was a long point in time. The Shimano ones where I wish I'd kept them, but now I'm quite happy that we have moved.
Yeah, but Magura, a brilliant brand. They're obviously trying to make their brake kits more accessible, so they brought out a new kit. I think it's called the CT5 and 4. Basically, a slightly cheaper version of what we've been using, which is the MT range.
Yeah. So the CT5 is a 4-piston.
Yeah.
And the CT4 is a 2-piston.
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
I don't get that.
Yeah, it's marketing teams. They like to confuse people.
Is it because 5 sounds a better number, whereas if
it's a bigger number,
4
so
and a 2?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So they're just a more cost accessible version of what we've been using. I think they're going to be. I don't know if the components are castings are different or something or what, but they're definitely rated for eMTBs and general e-bike usage. Bigger reservoirs, so they're easy to manage. There's no air trapping in them or anything like that. So that's interesting. It'd be interesting to see what they actually come out at, because I think the MT7 Pros are actually. I mean, they are pricey. I was expecting them to be a lot more expensive than they are, considering the engineering that's gone into them and things like we were talking the other day. If my rotor, if I had a rotor that failed or got bent, they're not expensive to replace. I'm still surprised at how cheap rotors are.
The rotor's what, £25?
I think the most expensive I've seen my 220s for is £39, which is pretty impressive, really. So
a lever and the actual caliper itself was about £205.
Yeah, I mean, that it is no small number, but it's not that high considering what you're actually getting out of it. I know we've had the challenges of them not working because they've just not been set up properly, but that's different. But then if you look at the price of things like front forks, they go crazy. There's some silly numbers involved. Thousands of pounds you can spend on those. So I think brakes are actually, and even look at a dropper post. When I first got my bike, I thought, one of the things I can upgrade is my dropper post. That'd be really cool.
But they're a couple of £100.
It isn't really a cool thing to do because the one that comes on the Specialized Turbo Levo is a really good one. To replace it with equivalent of that or better is over £300. So that makes the brakes feel quite good value for money, really.
I tell you what I have had to do though on mine is replace the dropper post lever.
Yes.
The one that came with the Cannondale, which I can't remember, don't know if it's a Cannondale own model. Just the design of it just made the cable weaken all the time. So I've just changed that.
Yeah.
But that was £100 and something just to change that lever.
Yeah. The one thing that you're seeing a lot in a lot of the EuroBike news from a lot of the manufacturers, their high-end kits, that they're demoing on some really interesting, mainly European-only bike brands like Stork and a few others. A lot of them using wireless shifters now, which I think are amazing. I've tried a road bike with them on it. It's incredible. The amount of times I crash a mounted bike and we always dropping them, always landing in bushes on them. Those sort of things are going to be really expensive to replace if you break them.
Of every time that my bike has been in for an accident,
you've had a hanger replaced.
It's had a hanger replaced or it's had the rear mech replaced.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about that bike, whether it's just heavy on the right-hand side, but if it's the wind or something like that, it always falls over and then it just gets bent.
Have you ever thought of one of those...
I know what you're going to say. Please say it. Go on.
Bike stand?
Oh, no, it wasn't a bike stand.
Like a little
little
kickstand with a...
Yeah, that'd be nice.
With some reflective tape
mirrors
on it.
I thought you were going to talk about the... Let me just get this right. The Park Tool TS 4.2 professional bicycle wheel tuning stand and the hanger, whatever it's called. God, I'm going to get that wrong now. That looks cool.
Right.
For the twice I've needed it, that would have been well worth the money.
How much was it compared to the actual hanger replacement?
Hanger alignment. Here we go.
Is it just a hammer?
Oh no, it's very cool. It's the DAG 2.2. It's the updated model.
Okay.
2.2 is I think a little bit lighter. So you basically put it on and then you spin the wheel and you look at where it rubs and then you realign it and then you do it so that it doesn't do it. I mean, I've condensed probably a half-hour Park Tool video into you just spin it and see where it touches and then change it.
Yeah.
Oh, I've now looked at the Park Tool PK5 Professional Toolkit. $870.
See, now that sounds like a bargain.
I do have a piston press though.
Yes.
That's the only bit. Anyway.
So I made a joke last week about when we go travelling, we better take some stuff with us. Should we order a Park Tool engineering kit?
On wheels.
On wheels.
And a tow hitch.
I've got my pressure washer. I've got my cordless pressure washer, which is really cool.
Muck off.
And we've got plenty of muck off. Got muck off coming out of our ears.
Yeah.
This is something that we'll talk about at some point when we're using a bit more for the people on the podcast. I'm holding up the new bike cleaner, which is it's not an organic, but it's definitely
I don't know. I mean, it tastes a bit funny. But,
I found it made my cornflakes go a bit weird. But it comes with a life bottle, which is basically a metal bottle on a rubber stand. And the actual mix is basically a sachet of stuff that you mix with water. It definitely, you've got to be very careful not to mix it up with an energy drink because a sport, especially on a bike, don't be putting one of those in your back pocket.
It should be clean. Just for reference, interestingly, on the side of the bottle where it says officially approved by, and you've got a list of brands, Cannondale's the third.
Oh, right.
And Specialized is the sixth.
Oh, right, okay.
I think that's probably just order of priority of them in the marketplace.
Probably, yeah.
Or how much they sponsored it.
So we'll do a review of that stuff. I'm still trying to get through my 500,000 litres of standard muck-off washing stuff, which is obviously now no longer acceptable. I did buy quite a lot of it. One thing I did find out at the weekend was it's amazing for cleaning car wheels. It really is.
Really?
Yeah, all the brake dust, without having to scrub, all came off. So I found a new use for my no longer eco-friendly version of muck-off. But I'll do a proper review of this stuff because it is pretty clever, and I do like the fact that they're making an effort.
I would like to try the rotor covers.
Yes.
And the pressure washer.
Yeah. Do you think the muck-off pressure washer will be any different to any other pressure washer?
It won't be as good as the Park Tool pressure washer, the PW 1.1. I don't think they do a pressure washer. I don't know whether it would be any different.
I don't know.
I do think it will be probably a bit more gentle on the mountain bike than my Karcher industrial pressure washer, which would basically blow the wheels into the wall. But
yeah, somebody was demoing a air washer at EuroBike on one of the videos today.
An air washer
instead of so basically a dry wash. So you spray the bike down and then you use this basically a lance that is basically a compressor on it to blow all the dirt out. And I kind of thought that just looks like it's going to make a lot of mess and probably just push dirt further into all the crevices. I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I do find that everyone has the best intentions with pressure washers.
Yeah.
And I think about the back of the house, and the bit that you've pressure washed always looks great. And then when you take a step back and you look at the wall and the hedge and the bushes and everything else is just covered in grit and grime.
Yeah.
And that's the point where you put it away and hope that nature does its best to get rid of it with the rain.
So I will always stand by my recommendation of the Works cordless one, which I think is amazing, absolutely amazing. It's perfect for mountain bikes because it's not particularly powerful. But it's portable. You can literally stick a water bottle on it and just use it out in the woods. It'll be amazing. So it will be definitely in the van for when we go away with some of the eco-friendly muck-off. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we'll test that and review it. All exciting things to come.
Yeah.
Any more new tech? I don't think I've read or listened to any
No,
more.
I think we've got another day. I think have we got another day? 2 days of EuroBike. So there'll be lots of stuff. There's loads of other stuff being announced, obviously, but there's a lot of stuff on cargo e-cargo bikes this year, which is still really interesting to me. But yeah, there's lots to come.
And I think over the course of the next couple of months, when the manufacturers start coming out with their new models, I did see that their Cannondale Jekyll, although that's not an eMTB, but the 2022 model of that has been announced and someone's gotten playing with. So I think over the course of the next couple of months, it'd be interesting to see what people have come out with. I know certainly from the one that I'm looking at, there'll be questions as to whether it's still got 29-inch wheels or whether it's a mullet or what's the travel on it. So exciting things to come.
How many manufacturers do you think are going to go for bigger battery or range extenders? Do you reckon there's going to be a mix? Because last year it was all about, the year before effectively, it was all about range extenders because that was, I think people have thought they might have peaked at battery size.
Yeah.
Clearly they haven't now with 750 and above.
But Bosch don't support power extenders.
No.
So it would be really interesting to see some stats in terms of what's the percentage of eMTBs that are running Bosch compared to the other. I mean, obviously Specialized is exclusively Bros, is it not? Do they do anything else?
No, I think it's all Bros with.
But I know that Cannondale do at the lower end. They do different setups, and I don't know. Don't know what the percentage is. But certainly with Bosch, you're stuck with the battery that's in it. You could buy another battery, but that's a heavy and expensive bit to carry around with you. Yeah,
I think because I think the bike my wife's got has the option for a range extender.
Oh, does it?
But it's not actually available, which was bizarre. It was
clever.
Marketed as it was going to be part of it, but it's not.
Oh, is that the one that's got the clips on the bottle holder? Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting. I know Panasonic have got motors out now, which is really odd. I'm not quite sure what their pedigree is in e-bike motors, but I'm sure they'll be good. Obviously, Shimano are doing stuff with their EP range. They've got range extender capabilities. So it'll be interesting to see, as far as for me, how many go big battery and how many go range extender.
Yeah.
Because I could probably, in a dreamland, justify a range topping battery over a full size, another 750 watt. I couldn't, you're looking at nearly £1,000 for something like that.
So what would you do? Go for a top up battery.
A top up battery, yeah. So my dream Rocky Mountain or something like that would do that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I think my dream would be a 750 watt-hour battery,
Right.
a fast charger,
And a small 300cc motor.
cottage pie or something in a pub.
A fast charger in a pub.
Fast charger and a cottage pie. You can't go wrong with that.
No. It's the ride back up the hill though. Afterwards, even with all the turbo you've got in the world.
Walk mode.
Walk mode.
And on that was the other thing on the new Bosch. They've made walk mode a bit easier to use. So for when you're on the cliff paths and you're going up 20 steps, it will actually make it a little bit easier. I have to be honest. Although working in IT, I had no idea how to enable walk mode, and whenever it did work, it was like a gift from God.
Yeah, I find it even on the Shimano on the Specialized, it's a little bit finicky. It doesn't always work.
Yeah.
But when it does work, it's amazing because you suddenly realise actually I can get up this almost vertical piece of ground that I couldn't ride up. So it's quite cool. Yep.
So last question before we close for this episode, and it's a question for you.
Right.
That I've only just thought of. Ready?
Yep.
Sure?
Yeah.
Are you as excited about your bike a year and a half on than you were when you first got it?
Yes. Didn't even have to think about
that. Right, okay.
And I would say it's probably because it's not the same bike anymore.
No, that is true.
It's been tweaked and played with a bit to make it a bit more... it's got more of my personality in it now and what I want out of it, which means failures on a regular basis. I love it. I mean, I'd love a new
Hovis
bike.
carrier.
And a Hovis carrier, thanks. I still love it, I think. And I love bikes. I could have a bike for every day of the week. One for the morning, one for the afternoon, every day of the week. But actually, the bike I've got is absolutely brilliant. It really is. And it's every time I ride it, I just think it's amazing. I think it's amazing when I'm off-road more than when I'm just pedaling down the road. I find it a bit of a bore riding on roads because it's big tyres, big noisy tyres.
Yeah.
And that whole thing about cycling on roads with on motorbikes just does my head in because everybody's racing posture. But I still absolutely love it. And every time I get on it on a Sunday morning and just head off, and I don't stick it in turbo. I remember reading quite a long time ago about never start your ride in turbo or middle range because then as soon as you want to go into eco feels like you're being pulled backwards. So I always start in eco if possible, and I'll ride it as long as possible in eco. But it still makes me smile.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I mean, I start off with the bike off.
Yeah.
And then when I open the garage door, I put it into tour and totally bypass.
And turbo.
Yeah, but I always start off with it off.
Yeah.
It's over there listening, going, "What is he talking about?"
Yeah.
Absolute rubbish.
The one thing I find more frustrating than anything is if I forget to charge it, that plugging it in because I don't like leaving it to charge overnight at all.
Yeah.
Really don't like doing that. Unless I get a fire alarm in my garage, which is not going to happen. It's just how long it takes to charge them. Even with a fast charger, they just take forever.
Yeah, it's a good 4 hours before there's anything rideable in it.
Yeah, definitely.
I do have the plug socket that it goes into where you can set the maximum amount of time. So after 6 hours, it shuts off.
Yeah, I failed with that thing and it kept turning off after 20 minutes.
Oh, did it?
I'm not very good with those.
Technology.
Yeah.
So yes. Are you as excited after 2 years? Answer is definitely yes. And I think that draws us to a close of this episode. Just ways to get in touch. As always, if you'd like to email us at podcast@the-emtbshow.com. And Instagram and Twitter are both at the eMTB show.
Great.
Gary, thank you very much.
Cheers, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, and we will
speak
speak soon.
Bye.
Bye.